But even so, ready for this first race, we have 14 on the grid, and not only do we have 2 good races to look forward to, we've also got a championship on the line. It could be sewn up in this first race. It's very much advantaged the way of the successful partnership of Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach. 4 wins have gone their way, but Peter Gulinks and Bert Langevin 3 wins, and it's been quite a comeback story really for the Belgian drivers, and don't rule them out. It is the full 5.8 kilometre long circuit here at Paul Ricard, with the first sector taking you all the way down through Virage du Camp and then on towards the Mistral Straight, with the chicane put in for the so-called gentleman drivers, just to slow the pace of the cars a little bit before the dauntingly fast right-hander of Senior, and then that in turn wriggles the cars round to Le Beausset, all the way round to Virage du Pont up at the end of the lap. The sun is shining, there's barely a cloud in the sky. David Addison trackside, and welcome aboard as the grid now starts to take shape in anticipation of this first of the 2 races, and pole position to a driver who has now had more poles than anybody else. In part, it is because he's a soloist, so he gets more chances, but Christoph Ulrich, who is already the AM champion, is going to be on pole position, and with him at the front of the grid in another of the KTMs, a car that had an outright win, in fact, earlier on in the season at Spa, last time out, is going to be driven by Sedi Samani and Stefan Rossina, and it's going to be Sedi Samani who will go first, double driver entry with the mandatory pit stop window. We've got a number of drivers that are coming back into the championship, having had occasional outings this year, liking what they've seen. We've also got some newcomers, and they're experienced newcomers because they come from different categories, and we have got also a new car, which is the Brabham, which is great to see. This 5.4 litre V8 engine Brabham that David Brabham himself is going to drive. He'll do the second stint in the car, but he shares with Dennis Anderson, experienced driver, and that car 4th fastest at the end of qualifying yesterday. They're heading up towards the grid. You see the Ferrari in the hands of J.M. Lippmann and Luca Damasci, and as the cars then make their way towards the grid itself, it's going to be this 1-hour race with a mandatory pit stop window. 93 seconds line to line for the pit stop and the driver change. If you are, of course, doing a driver change, the sporting board has given special dispensation for 1 or 2 of them to be soloists, but even so, a mandatory pit stop you must make. And the Paul Ricard circuit is the final venue on a calendar that began for these teams at Monza. Hockenheim came next, then Misano, and then Spa, and here in the sunshine, GT2 ends its season. And there is the man behind it all, Stefan Ratel, aboard number 88, the LP Racing Audi R8 LMS GT2 that he shares with the LP, Luca Piri. They discovered during the first lockdown of their homes in Italy that they not only were neighbours but had a shared interest in motor racing. They started competing against each other in sim racing, and then decided that they'd take it to the next level and go and buy a car and share it in real world racing. And Stefan Ratel has big plans for the future of GT2, and it's good that the entry has been growing. Down the pit lane there goes one of the Lamborghinis. We've got an increased number of those as well this weekend. Cyril Lima is an established Lamborghini Super Trofeo racer, and he is on the grid. So also Cedric Lima with Julien Piguet, and the pair of them adding to what we've seen already in the with Mauro Casadei, for example, being Lamborghini mounted earlier on in the season. So there is the grid, which, as I say, is starting to take shape, and it will be a rolling start as ever for GT2 European Series, this Fanatec-backed series, which, for a change, is not being presided upon by the normal race director, Peter Daly, who is a little under the weather, so Peter get well soon, but the Belgian race official Alain Adam in charge as Luca Piri strides across the grid, ready to receive his car. Now there, number 16 slotting into place on the outside of the front row of the grid. Sedi Samini will go first, experienced KTM crossbow battle racer, and Samini a winner in the most recent race at Spa. So Sedi Samini will do the first stint in that car, and there's a gap on the front row where in a moment Christoph Ulrich will come to. Christoph Ulrich has been very, very impressive all season within the AM class. He had a win with a co-driver, Adrian Peschke, at Monza. He had a different co-driver of Christoph Lenz to win at Hockenheim, and then he had 2 on his own at Spa, and I think he rather prefers racing on his own, so that's the plan for this weekend as well. Cedric Lima, you just saw the Lamborghini that he will drive. That lines up then for 3rd on the grid. And it's going to be the Brabham alongside. There, number 24 is Chris Rosenberger to go first in one of the many of the Reiter engineering run KTMs. The KTM has become an interesting little car, and not necessarily a problem, but it's been something that the organisers perhaps have had to address, which is that it's a relatively low-cost car, and it's very quick and it's very competitive. And people are thinking, well, I can go drive one of those instead of spending megabucks on something else. Now, there's one car there, look, that has been trapped in the pit lane. And now, that might be the Brabham looking at it. That's Christoph Ulrich. He's good for the grid. It's not the Brabham, because there it is. There's number 20 in the background. You can see it. So there is one car clearly that has tried to do an extra lap through the pit lane, and the lights have gone red. So one is trapped in the pit road, and will have to start at the back. But you could argue that in a relatively modest grid, and with an hour, it's not the biggest of handicaps. There, Dennis Anderson being offered some water just before he goes racing. And Dennis, who started off in the Ferrari Challenge, was a regular in the old Blancpain Endurance Series early days before going to race in IMSA and the World Endurance Championship and ELMS, you name it. Massively experienced driver, and of course Le Mans winner David Brabham will take over that car for the second stint. So the grid starts to complete itself. There is 81 that Peter Gulings will start. Peter ready to go. Mechanical Maladies rather scuppered their plans at Spa. They need to be in the top 3 fundamentally to keep the championship alive into the second race. They come into this 14 points back from Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson, but the Monza and indeed Misano and Spa winners, despite mechanical problems slowing them towards the end of race 1 at Spa, they still won it. They've had a good fight back and are still in touch for the championship. There is Jaromir Jerick, who will go first aboard number 32, which is another of the Lamborghinis, and he's got Huilin Han as his co-driver. Now, Huilin Han, Chinese driver, hasn't been able to do any racing at all in Asia, so he's come across to Europe this year and has found places to race, and I think he's rather enjoyed himself. So Huilin Han, who was a class winner in Lamborghini Super Trofeo at the Nürburgring, for example, he is good to go for the second stint. There, number 911. What else could it be but a Porsche? Leonardo Gorini drives solo in that car that's livery, as you see, is a nod to early Group C Works Porsche colours. And then behind you've got the sort of martini-hued car, which is Aurelius Rustica, to be partnered by Michael Vergers. He will do the second stint in that car, and of course will start race 2, which is tonight. The drivers getting a chance to race in the dark. Officials and the grid personnel making their way back into the pit lane. I've got a feeling the car that might be trapped in the pit lane could be number 33, actually, the championship leading car, but we'll try and tick cars off on the grid in a moment. We're jumping around to see who is there. There's the Martini livery Porsche. Now, in theory, alongside it should be 33, but I've got a horrible feeling that's where the gap is. So you've got 32 and you've got treble 3, but yes, the championship leading car it is then that is in the pit lane. So Mark Patterson, who had to come up from the back of the grid in one of the Spa races because Anders Fjordbach had been off in free practice and damaged the car. They couldn't get out in qualifying. Well, there's another fight back on the cards here by the look of it, because that's going to have to come from either the rear of the grid if it's allowed out on the formation lap, or from a pit lane start. It could be a deliberate ploy, start behind everybody, then you don't get involved in any dramas at the first corner and you can pick your way through, but that's a pretty bold roll of the dice. You might expect that in the second race, not necessarily this one. However, all is about to be revealed, because the cars then in a few moments will have engines fired up at the 1 minute board. Christoph Ulrich in the Sportec Motorsport Run KTM good to go, and with Sedi Sarmini lining up with him at the front of the grid. Then the 50-minute race is imminent, so as the cars prepare themselves for battle, they've got Sedi Sarmini's orange and white KTM on the inside of the row, and the green flag releases the cars. 1 or 2 a little bit slow away, including the Brabham. Now, Dennis Anderson has just about got it rolling. 1 or 2 thought they'd try and dodge around, but now at least everybody is away. So down towards turn 1 they go. Chance to get some warmth into the tyres. Valérie Guillon, you saw waving the green flag as the championship manager. Alain Adon was the race director in race control, keeping an eye on the grid. But lines up fast. Christoph Ulrich is on pole position aboard KTM number 7, and it is 16 Sedi Sarmini that will line up with him at the front of the grid. On the second row, 63 Cedric Leimer goes first. Dennis Anderson starts the Brabham alongside 5th Chris Rosenberger, with double Le Mans winner Hans Stuck to take over, and Peter Gulinks is alongside trying to outscore the number 33 Audi will come to in a moment. 7th Jaromir Jerick starts. Leonardo Guarini is a soloist alongside. Then it's Mark Patterson from the pits, and Aurelius Rustica's Porsche. J.M. Littmann, very experienced driver is J.M. coming into this championship new. He is next on the grid to line up alongside Cyril Leimer, and then it is Stefan Ratel and Stephan Larson on the back row of the grid. One car that we lost was Jens Liebhauser and Stinus Longin, but that car went off in FP1 and did some damage, and also Hubert Trunkenpolt crashed his KTM in qualifying and has done enough damage to that car to put it out of contention as well, which is a real shame. However, as I say, we've still got enough for 2 really good races, and there sitting in the pit lane is number 33 being held. Then it will have to start from the pits when everybody else has blasted away, doesn't get out onto the back of the grid for the formation lap. So the field getting a chance to put some warmth into the Pirelli tyres. And there Sedi Sarmini just ahead of Dennis Anderson as the cars make the run up now along the Mistral straight towards the chicane. The chicane Nord as it is. And also slow away by the look of it has been Stefan Ratel. He's fallen behind one of the intervention vehicles there in number 88. So the way that has happened is not immediately apparent, but Stefan is trying to play catch up. The intervention vehicle skips the chicane and will then hopefully form in at the rear of the queue. So up towards Senior they come. The climb up the hill, and then that very, very fast right-hander. It's part of the circuit where track limits become an issue, but hopefully people are going to be well behaved and not give Alain Adon too much to worry about. Then you have that loop right up around Le Beausset. This switchback section really to end the lap with the tight right of Virage Dupont up at the completion of the lap. So the pole position car of Christoph Ulrich, as I say, he's already the AM champion, came from the Michelin Le Mans Cup. He's raced in, if you like, the forerunner to this, the GT Sports Club. He's also driven a GTE Ferrari in the European Le Mans Series, so he comes as an experienced driver within the AM bracket. But Christoph Ulrich on pole position then with Sedi Sarmini with him at the front of the grid. The second row, number 63, Cedric Leimer, who has won many a race in Lamborghini Super Trofeo. He's also been a double class champion in the Pro-Am category within that, as well as in French GT and in the GT Sports Club he's raced as well. And lining up alongside him, Dennis Anderson, the experienced Danish driver, making a welcome return to European racing after a spell in America. So the cars now start to get themselves into that 2x2 formation. The third row of the grid on the inside line, Chris Rosenberger, who has come from rallying into circuit racing in the KTM Crossbow Battle. Versatile rallyist, minis, Porsches even, you name it. And got Hans Stuck to take over that car, Grand Prix racer, double Le Mans winner, touring car legend, you name it, Stuckey has done it. And then on the outside of the row, Peter Gulinks, who has done very, very little racing really up until this year, but has been very impressive indeed with his 3 race wins. He will hand over to Bert Longin for the second stint of the race, which is about to get underway then as the cars make the run up now towards the timing line. If the race director is happy, he will give the indication that the race can get underway. Then who is going to make the best start now as we go racing for 50 minutes? It's a good start by Ulrich, and going with him there in number 63 Lamborghini is Cedric Leimer as they head down towards turn 1 then. So Cedric Leimer is on his toes, but also trying to dive up the middle is Chris Rosenberger with his KTM. The KTM's light and quick, a little bit edgy on occasions for the drivers. We've had a number of them in strife this year in different races, and Sarmini has gone backwards off the line in a sense. He's fallen away. Ulrich is in the lead then as the cars make that run then down now towards the Virage du Camp for the first time then. So it is Ulrich up front. It is Rosenberger in second place, and a good start by Cedric Leimer putting him in third place. Dennis Anderson in the yellow Brabham has rather dropped away on the opening lap of the race. And there, Stefan Ratel trying to keep at bay Aurelius Rustica in the Martini-liveried Porsche. The one to watch, though, is going to be 33 from the pit lane, Mark Patterson, who is on a charge. Treble 3 is J.M. Littmann in the Ferrari. And now the cars make the run onto the Mistral straight for the first time then. So it is Ulrich ahead of Rosenberger, 1 and 2. Third, it is Cedric Lima in the Lamborghini. A little bit of a gap opening up to fourth there. Number 16 of Sedi Sarmini, and Leonardo Guarini is on his toes there. Look as he comes up to have a go at Peter Gulinks coming into the chicane. He can't do it. Behind the pair of them in 32 is Jaromir Jerick, another welcome returnee to the championship. And Jerick trying to now go after the traffic ahead as they make the climb now up to Signa. The road rises a little. They go through that right-hander, and now the cars blast their way up towards Le Beausset for the first time. Now Christoph Ulrich looking to be the first AM to win outright, and the pace the car has got so far, mighty impressive. There is Leonardo Guarini keeping at bay 32. Jaromir Jerick at the wheel of it, but then Dennis Anderson lost a bit of ground off the line, but he's looking to make that up now, getting more and more confident in the unique Brabham BT63. Great to have the type number back in the racing world as well, in this car, which has had a lot of work put into it. Hopefully will be one of many that we see in this series next year. 700 horsepower, give or take, 5.4 V8, and as it comes now towards the end of the opening lap, Dennis Anderson is only going to get quicker and quicker as he gets more used to that car, and the car as well is developed. Now, Sedi Sarmini here, look, fourth, almost the cork in the bottle, isn't he? Because you can see how much ground he has dropped on the opening lap to the traffic ahead. Over the timing line they go. End of lap one then, and the margin between the top two, 1.4 seconds then. Ulrich to Rosenberger. Cedric Lima still runs third. There going through is Stefan Ratel. Ratel in 10th at the end of the opening lap, so chipping his way back into contention here. And we'll see what further progress can be made, not only in his stint, of course, but then you put a different driver in, that of Luca Piri, ready for the second. Replay of the start, the car's accelerating away, down towards the first corner there in the pit lane, Mark Patterson. But a good getaway made, certainly, by Ulrich and by Rosenberger as well, who was just able to dive through the middle, cover off the challenge of Cedric Lima. I think Stefan Ratel got a bit crowded out on the inside line, elected to slot in behind the traffic, and that cost him a bit of ground and a bit of momentum as well. Mark Patterson in the very background, released from the pit lane straight away, trying to catch up to the queue of cars ahead. And there you see Aurelius Rustica up the inside of Ratel. J.M. Littman in the background as we go back live, heading into the chicane, as heading into Signa there is 24, Chris Rosenberger. So he's another of those that has made some progress from where he was on the grid. Rosenberger started on the third row, and he's running then in that second place. Cedric Lima goes way wide coming into Le Beausset there. And look at the gap now that Sedi Sarmini has got over Peter Gulinks. Now, the good news for Gulinks is, first of all, that he's outscoring his championship rival, Mark Patterson. However, he needs to gain places in class, or need Bert Langin to do it. The top two overall are both out of the AM class, incidentally, both Ulrich and Rosenberger. But then you've got Lima, Sarmini and Gulinks out of Pro-Am, and you get points in your class. So really, their 81 needs to be gaining ground. However, Peter Gulinks is on the defensive because Leonardo Guarini is closing, so is Jaromir Jerick, and Dennis Anderson is going with them as the leaders head up across the line. Now, Cedric Lima has got himself right back onto the tail, look, of Chris Rosenberger as they go down towards turn one. And Lima now looking as though the move is imminent. 4.5 minutes, give or take, into the race. 45 minutes remain, as you see on the clock over the start and finish line. The timing line is there. Rustica dives down towards turn one. Now, behind him is Mark Patterson. So Patterson has now put himself up ahead of Ratel. Replay here of what happened to the Rosenberger and Lima battle. Chris Rosenberger on the outside, way wide, lost momentum, but has just about hung on to the place. Cedric Lima right with him now. Fastest lap outright, no surprise. The leader, Christoph Ulrich. But the change is imminent for that second place, isn't it? Up towards the chicane they go. J.M. Littman has got a problem. So the Ferrari is into the pit lane early on. The Scuderia Ravetto and Roberti entry comes in. J.M., who's started the year off in Super Trofeo Lamborghini racing, switched to this, but not having a lot of fortune, sadly. As there, Dennis Anderson almost gets mugged by Cyril Lima in the Lamborghini, who comes up to have a go, but the yellow Brabham fends him off. There's a great noise, that Brabham, as there, Chris Rosenberger, now having sorted himself out after his moment at the Virage Dupont, is pulling away once again from Cedric Lima, so that margin is extending between those two. 33, just to confirm, didn't start from the pits deliberately. It wasn't a plan to be behind any dramas. It was, by the look of it, therefore, just a mistiming on how many laps they could do through the pits before the pit lane closed. So it's slightly put them on the back foot, but in the space of 50 minutes, expect that car to continue to climb up the order. So right now you're looking at Dennis Anderson, who is coming onto the tail of Jaromir Jerick. This is the battle going on for 7th and 8th places. Leonardo Guarini just up the road ahead of them. You can see 6th. Now ahead, Peter Gulling's look is starting to attack Sedi Sarmini, and that's important because each place he gains within the class helps for points, whereas Mark Patterson, having got ahead of Stefan Ratel, is also starting to score better, and he's going to move ahead of JM Littman. So Mark Patterson now gains another position within the classification and therefore gains further points, all good for the championship. Patterson's car going nicely, no argument about that, so he's pushing on. But so also is Dennis Anderson. The fascination of that Brabham is going to be what David himself in the eponymous car can do in the second stint of the race. The Grand Prix winner, Bathurst winner, Le Mans winner, touring car racer, you name it, David has done it. And great that he's taking driving duties on with Dennis Anderson this weekend, as there are the leading KTMs then, both in the AM class. Cedric Lima third, still leading his class. And remember, as they come up then now towards the chicane, he will give that car over to Julien Piguet. Chris Rosenberger will give the white KTM over to Hans-Joachim Stuck, whereas Christoph Ulrich, who is scampering away in the lead of the race, doesn't have to make a driver change. So that car, currently doing good lap times, can carry on doing them. There, 32 then, Jaromir Jerick, still under attack from Dennis Anderson, and Cyril Lima behind. So that battle pack is building up nicely. For 4th place, Sedi Sarmini comes now up towards senior. Behind him is Guling's 5th, Guarini is 6th, 7th there, you can see is Jerick, 8th Anderson. Cyril Lima will come through the shot in 9th place there in the background. And fans young and old watch on, looking down from the top of the pit balcony. And a big, big lose for Dennis Anderson. The Brabham swaps ends and just clips Cyril Lima as he goes through. Now let's hope that's not done any damage to the back of the Brabham. Dennis Anderson gets going, does he? That looked as though it was all self-induced. Went for a gap on the inside and just seemed to lose traction. Skates up the curb, and as it rolls backwards, there was a slight contact. You saw the rear wing ripple as it just brushed against Cyril Lima's Lamborghini, and therefore there was a yellow flag out at that part of the circuit while Dennis Anderson tries to get going. And there, diving through on the inside of Rustica goes Mark Patterson. That was a bold effort, wasn't it, down at the Virage Dupont, and also looking to go through is Stefan Ratel. So 2 places lost for Rustica. Over the timing line they go, and Rustica in the Porsche just able to fight back then as the cars go over the timing line. The team that operates number 33, which is the high-class racing squad, Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach's car, they've been pretty tight-lipped about what the problem was that kept the car in the pits, or put the car in the pits. One thing is for sure, it's going all right now. So the Brabham has not got going by the look of it. There it is going now. So Dennis Anderson has taken a little bit of time to get the car fired up again. I'm assuming it was a self-induced spin rather than a failure that caused it to spin. So we want it to carry on in the race. And it's got going again, certainly. So that means that the yellow flag can be withdrawn. Stefan Ratel up the curb in his efforts to dislodge number 5 Porsche, Aurelius Rustica, who's done precious little racing, really. A businessman racer, but there's not much that goes on motor racing-wise in Lithuania, so it's good that he's come across into mainland European races this year, learning about the car, all of which, of course, are new. These GT2 models that Porsche and Audi and others have built, all new this year, and Aurelius Rustica has been learning about the Porsche, which isn't perhaps quite as AM-friendly as the Audi, maybe. A bit understeery on occasions, but Rustica and Michael Vergers have had a good season together. A win is on the cards, but second is the best they've had. And right now, you would suggest that they're not going to match that in this race, because having been passed by Mark Patterson, Aurelius Rustica is falling away. Stefan Ratel goes through in the Audi. You can see the rear wings shaking there as well. The rear wings do have some effect, of course, but these cars nowhere near as aero-dependent as a quicker GT3 car, for example. So there's a bit more feel through the car itself, and they're meant to be able to attract the AM so that the AM driver is not overfaced with aero and with speed. And a lot of hard work has gone on this year into making the category a success, and further big plans for next year. But here at this SRO Racing Festival at Paul Ricard, good to see the biggest grid of the season. Aurelius Rustica then comes under attack from the patron, Stefan Ratel, right there, as the Porsche wriggles out wide over the curb. Stefan with a tighter line tries to get the run as they come over the timing line, but no, that Porsche has got bags of grunt in a straight line. We've seen that earlier on in the year. May not be the best through the corners, but it's good in a straight line. Leaders down towards turn 1. So as Ulrich leads the way now, he's 4.6 seconds to the good. Now this is Peter Guling, still looking for a way past Sedi Sarmini, and he's not done it yet. So he's taking his time about this. Sarmini will give way to Stefan Rossina, former Porsche Super Cup racer. Guling's to Bert Langin, Spa 24 winner, FIA GT race winner, very experienced driver all round. So you could expect 81 to make some progress, but it is 18 seconds away from the lead of the race. It's running third in class. The bad news is that Mark Patterson is fourth in class, and Fjordback is even quicker than Mark. So when you get into the second stint, number 33 is going to be absolutely charging and could get itself into the top 3 for the championship. If it's outside the top 3, then it will go to the next race, unless 81 retires from the race and doesn't score at all. But basically, they've both got to score to keep hopes alive, and 81 particularly has got to stay ahead of number 33. So pressure is on Langin and Fjordback, co-drivers for the second stint. Much number crunching to be done for later on in the day. The second race, of course, is going to be in the dark as well, as there for second place, Cedric Lima finally looks like he's able to make a move, but no, Ulrich fends him off, Rosenberger fends him off and then runs out of road, coming up towards the approach to Virage du Pont. So as they made the run round Virage du Lac, Chris Rosenberger, too much speed, carried into the corner, couldn't make it, ran up the escape road, and Cedric Lima may never have as easy a pass as that. So he's gone through, he's taken second position, keeps him in the lead of the Pro-Am class. Here it was, look, he comes up on the outside, approaching Virage du Lac, and at this point, Rosenberger moves across, covers the line, but had totally the wrong line for the corner. Couldn't get it slowed down, couldn't get it turned in, runs out wide, and gives up second place. Still second in his class, but not second overall anymore. Now that he's finally been released, what, if anything, can Lima do about the race leader? Christoph Ulrich last time did the fastest lap of the race, so Ulrich absolutely charging still. There you've got Leonardo Gorini's Porsche keeping the Lamborghini at bay. Jaromir Jerick still hustles on behind him. 32 goes through, so Jerick tries to gain a place. Now that's J.M. Littman back on the road. The Ferrari, which is running as both 333 and 3, if you look at different aspects of the car. A couple of laps lost after its pit stop, but it is back on track. That is Peter Gulings finally making a move against Sedi Sarmini, and he goes through, coming into the chicane, gets the job done. Good pass by Peter Gulings. So coming towards the end of his stint, appreciating that he needs to get on with the job, and that's significant. Why? Well, it's not just a position on the racetrack, it's more points as well. 25 for a class win, 18 for second, 15 for third. He's just bought 3 more points by doing that. There going through is 32, so Jaromir Jerick hustles on. This is Le Bourset, which is the corner that caught out Dennis Anderson a few laps back. That car down in 13th spot now. But Christoph Ulrich continues to hustle on. He doesn't have to defend from anybody, so he can choose his own lines, control the pace. He's looking very good up front, that is for sure. Getting our first warning about track limits now from Alain Adom, and it's to Cyril Lima in 8th place. He's another of the AMs, but Cyril Lima being warned about track limits right now, coming onto the Mistral straight. So the leaders go by. Ulrich another fastest lap of the race now, 2 minutes 7.356. It was 2 minutes 7.2 in qualifying, so he's almost there. Qualifying though was late last night, so it was much, much cooler. A lot of rubber had gone down as well yesterday at the end of a busy day on track. This is the battle between Aurelius Rustica and Stefan Ratel. They've battled in just about every race this year, and they are still at it. They've had some great duels, and up towards the timing line they come. Over the line goes Aurelius, Stefan behind him, and just as we've seen on previous laps, so the Porsche good in a straight line, and the gap just extends a little bit between those two. Another of the newcomers, by the way, is behind them in 12th place. That's Stephan Larson, sharing with the mega experienced Mauro Casadei, Stephan Larson has only done karting up until coming into cars of late, so learning about the whole discipline all the time. Mark Patterson there in the meantime, number 33, presses on, catching Cyril Lima. There's not much Mark hasn't raced over the years, hugely experienced driver, and the 69-year-old South African has raced in the Blancpain Endurance Series, WEC, ELMS, Asian Le Mans Series, American Le Mans, you name it, he's been there, he's done it, and largely he's won in them as well. And this could be another title to add to the CV come the end of the year. Anders Fjordbach will do the second stint, another driver with lots of American experience, raced in the IMSA WeatherTech Series most recently before coming into GT2 this year. Anders Fjordbach, a real gun for hire, raced, for example, at Le Mans, so still driving in WEC, but as a co-driver for Mark Patterson, he's been absolutely ideal, and that Audi turns its way up through senior with Mark Patterson chipping away at Cyril Lima. Now, passing Lima doesn't help in terms of points, but it does help in terms of track position, getting him nearer to the class opposition. Cars now swing their way up through the Virage de Bandor, on now towards Grabalon, and then up towards Virage du Lac, towards the end of this 9th lap of the race. And for the leaders, Christophe Ulrich, Cedric Lima at the margin, 8 seconds, and it's building all the time. So 32 minutes on the clock. Pit window beckons as Mark Patterson once more thinks about where he might be able to make a move. Lines up here to come and have a go. 8 laps in the book, forgive me. On to lap 9 now, and a look to the inside line. Mark Patterson couldn't quite do it, so slopped back in behind the Lamborghini. Cyril Lima goes solo, whereas here Leonardo Gorini is another of the soloists, and he has got Jaromir Jerick behind. Jerick will make a driver change. Patterson there, oh so nearly sent it up the inside line. Thought about it, you could see the stance of the car looking as though Mark was going to go for the inside, then elected to change his mind. Slots back in behind, and the cars swing their way up now around Saint-Beau and then up towards the approach to the Mistral Straight. Speed building all the time here. Now, where is the next battle going to come from? We've been looking at one, which is Mark Patterson on the back of Cyril Lima, but I think many others are going to be shepherded out of the second stint of the race here. Leonardo Gorini being warned about track limits as well, coming out of turn 2, as over the line there goes Dennis Anderson. So the Brabham, after its spin and the time that was lost as a legacy of that, fighting back. Safety car will bring it into the mix, very definitely, but no suggestion of an incident that's going to trigger one of those right now, so it's going to have to be done on pure pace from Dennis in the remaining time in his stint. Might get one more lap out of it if it's the slower driver in the car, and in most cases that is the case for race 1. Anticipate they will bail early. Told you that Brabham made a great noise. Powers its way, growls its way up through Saint-Beau and onto the Mistral Straight now. More, please, more. It's a fabulous noise. And the Brabham then, still running down in 13th place, but has certainly got the potential to buy back places before the end. So drivers are getting ready. The pit window beckons. 19 minutes, 40 seconds into the race. That's the leader. We've not seen much of Christophe Ulrich because he's been rather dominant. But not only is he looking for yet another class win to add to the tally, he wants an overall win, and it could come his way looking at the pace of that car. Got nobody to battle against right now, but the Sportec Motorsport entry hustles its way up towards the end of the lap, and the pit window is now open, so Dennis Anderson might be the first driver to really benefit for that, because it's time just about to allow him in, whereas Stefan Ratel probably the last driver to be forced onto another lap. So for many, they're on the in lap now. But I just wonder whether Dennis Anderson might sneak in early and try and get David Brabham into the car a lap sooner than others. Waiting to see if that car does go across the timing line on the track or in the pit lane. In the meantime, Ratel closing on Rustica. And the race leaders currently are working lap 10 with just 30 minutes to go of the 50. And there, down the pit road, comes Stephan Larson, and he will give way to Mauro Casadei. Mauro laconically saunters to the car. Mark Patterson is being warned about track limits. So Stephan Larson's stint is done, and Mauro Casadei nonchalantly clambers on board. Mauro, who's been racing since the early 90s in pretty much every GT category you can think of, and these days works for Lamborghini, and he's been a big plus for this category actually. Whenever he's had a chance to champion the cars in the series or attract new people, regular Lamborghini customers into it, he has done so, and he's been a very big asset indeed to spreading the word of GT2. Now we have got into the pit lane Cedric Lima and also Chris Rosenberger and also Peter Gulinks, and it's a shorter line into the pit lane, so that means that Cedric Lima notionally took over the race lead by coming into the pit lane, but others head down the pit road as well, including, as you see there, Mark Patterson. So Christoph Ulrich has stayed out. It kind of doesn't matter to him as a soloist, and he's got the lead and a gap anyway, but others now cycle through the pit stops, which 93 seconds the time from the line in to the line out. So some of the early stoppers blast back out, including 27. So that now is Mauro Casadei at the wheel. Into the pit lane comes Stefan Ratel to give way to Luca Piri. A bit more urgency about this pit stop, isn't there? And of course, anybody's stop that is under those 93 seconds, the data is there from the French timekeeping service that then goes to the race director, and that's referred to the stewards to see if anything needs to be done. So all is good, says Stefan Ratel. Luca Piri ready to clamber on board the car. Number 32 there, Jaromir Jerick giving way in the pit stop to Heulin Han. He gets away now down the pit road. The Brabham goes by. In fact, Dennis Anderson has stayed out, so I thought he might be one of the first in, actually, but he has stayed out. So that car in danger of going quite a long way down in terms of pace, because you've now got even faster drivers aboard the majority of cars. 88, Luca Piri blasts away. The Audi thunders down the pit lane, no messing about there. Almost at the halfway point now, as Luca Piri accelerates away. And he's going to be behind Michael Vergers. In other words, the Porsche stays ahead of the Audi there, as they have been for the bulk of the race. Michael Vergers then on board the Martini liveried Porsche, the Speed Factory Racing run car, and for LP Racing it is Luca Piri at the wheel. That's JM Littman back into the pit lane. Now JM has already had, of course, one stop with a drama. This is the scheduled mandatory regulation stop, in he comes. And a good battle on track here. Leonardo Guarini has got number 19 there. Right within that is Cyril Lima, and Guarini has just gone through. So Leonardo Guarini goes third. And these two have yet to pit as well. So this is a proper battle for position. Porsche ahead of Lamborghini, nose to tail. And Cyril Lima tries the outside line to get the place back. But Leonardo Guarini stays ahead. The works colour scheme adorning the Porsche. He's up in the third spot. And Guarini, who we saw ready for the first time at Spa, good to have him back, going nicely. And it looks like he's another driver committed to the GT2 concept now. Again, that Porsche just understeers out a little bit wide, and that brings Cyril Lima back into the game at Saint-Baume. Onto the Mistral straight they go now. Other drivers getting set for their stint. JM Littman has come in to give way to Luca De Marchi in the Ferrari. So the driver change goes on there. Luca De Marchi, regular Italian GT and sports prototype racer in Italy, he will take over that car. But right now, Leonardo Guarini coming under attack now. Number 33, which has been given over to Anders Fjordbach. That car has already done an absolute best in the first sector on its outlap. So Anders Fjordbach at the wheel of it, absolutely flying. Number 33. So Fjordbach is certainly going to be one to watch then in his pursuit of, for example, Bat Langin for class points. The order will be confirmed as soon as the pit window is closed, and Christoph Ulrich, the race leader, comes through the pit lane now to serve his mandatory stop. So down the pit road he comes. And remember, no driver change needed here. stays in the car. Tyre pressures are checked and adjusted if needs be, now that the fuel load of the car is lighter. And if everybody is happy, then that car can be released bang on cue down the pit lane at the regulation speed, so that in theory you're about a tenth over, that's all, and you can just blast away. If you're under the 93 seconds, expect to go and see the stewards. But so far so good. Christoph Ulrich's first stint exemplary, and helped a little bit perhaps by Sedi Salmini holding up one or two people behind him. Salmini is in, so is Gorini there, look, and also Cyril Lima is in. So this is a chance for some to shuffle the order now based on what we have in the pit stops. Screen cleared for Leonardo Gorini, another car within the LP Racing squad. Christoph Ulrich gets away then, down the pit road, sets off now, ready to blast back into the race. The next thing we need to start looking at after the pit stops is where we stand in terms of points and what progress Anders Fjordbach is going to make relative to Bert Langevin. For the moment, Langevin is ahead, needs to stay ahead, absolutely, to keep his championship hopes alive. 14-point margin, and there are 50 points on offer across the two races. Gorini gets away. Porsche blasts back down the pit lane then, ready to resume the fray. Through there goes Hans Stuck, who's taken over from Chris Rosenberger. Through goes the Audi of Bert Langevin. The Lamborghinis trying to get themselves together, aren't they? The Limers, plus Heulin Han. And that's Anders Fjordbach going through on the inside line. So Fjordbach has just done the fastest lap of the race. 2 minutes 5.969. That's a good chunk quicker than the pole position time, but of course that was done by the start driver, so Fjordbach didn't drive in that qualifying session, he drove in the second session for tonight's race. But now Fjordbach is going to be the man to watch to see not only how many places he can take, because that's a given, but where that's ultimately going to put him relative to 81, Bert Langevin, and the championship decider later on could become a much easier concept for the crew at High Class Racing. Danish team. High Class Racing also, of course, operating the Brabham for Dennis Anderson and David himself. There, number 5, Michael Vergers then, 10th over the line. Vergers should have pace as well, as Fjordbach now gets himself onto the back of Han Heulin. Now, Heulin is an AM, and Fjordbach is very much the pro in a Pro-Am car, so this should be a relatively easy pass. Up front, though, now, it is Julien Piguet, shown as being the race leader. Now, we'll confirm that at the end of the lap, because if that is the case, then it was either a very good pit stop from the Lamborghini or a bad pit stop from the KTM, or a discrepancy on the pit stop. But Piguet, for the moment, is shown as being ahead. There is Stefan Ratel looking on in the LP Racing garage, and will be very buoyed, I'm sure, by the fact that the grid is a bigger one for this weekend. As ever, Stefan keeping an eye on all of his championships, many of the support series here this weekend, regulars on the French GT package, but the SRO series, French GT, the French Super Tourism Championship, as well as the GT2 class that you're watching right now, the Fanatec GT2 European Series. Fanatec, big supporters of SRO activity with GT World Challenge Europe, and also, of course, the esports concept that has really taken off over the last year and a bit. So there, number 63 then, Julien Piguet. He's another massively experienced driver, as Julien, who came out of Formula Renault and Formula 3. 63 then, accelerating onto the Mistral Straight, and indeed, he is ahead of Christoph Ulrich. So what was a massive lead by Ulrich, I think changed largely because Piguet got into the car sooner and is quicker. So he's had a couple more laps in the car to bring down that gap, and his last lap was a 2 minutes 8, whereas Christoph Ulrich's last lap, of course, included that pit stop. But the AM in the KTM, I don't think he's going to stay with the Pro in the Pro-Am Lamborghini here. So Julien Piguet getting away. Christoph Ulrich, however, still leads his class. That's the good news for him. Out of senior goes Ulrich. Teams look on, and right now Bert Langevin is ahead of Anders Fjordbach, but only by 1 place, and Fjordbach over a second faster on the last lap. So Bert Longchamp has really got to get a wriggle on here. And with Julien Piguet leading the class, they're fighting over second and third. As long as Bert Longchamp is in the points, even if 33 Fjordbach gets second, it will go to the last race. So come what may, Bert Longchamp's got to finish. He's got to score to have even a remote chance of taking the title later on in the day. So the race leaders then currently work the 15th lap of the race, and that is Christoph Ulrich chasing after Julien Piguet, who's just gone through. There is 63, Piguet up front. 1 second the margin last time, 18 minutes to go. And in fact, Christoph Ulrich, let's be fair to him, is coming back, no question about it. He's getting himself back into the mix as the cars now accelerate once again down towards the Virage du Camp, towards Saint-Baume. How is Bert Longchamp doing? He is closing on Hans Stuck in the meantime. Longchamp needs to try to get ahead of him, if only to protect himself from Fjordbach, and he does so. Goes through on the inside there, down towards Virage du Camp, goes through up towards Saint-Baume. Now, good move, good pass. So Bert Longchamp goes through. What it doesn't do, though, of course, is give him any more points in the class. It's track position, yes, but the only way he can score better is to get onto terms with Julien Piguet, and he's something like 25 seconds up the road now. And Fjordbach is about to sort out Stucky as well. Look, BLDC on, remember, Hans Stuck on the outside line, and yet Fjordbach has got the job done even before the chicane there. Above the pit lane, fans look on, and they see right now Julien Piguet as the race leader. But as far as the battle is concerned between Longchamp and Fjordbach, it is now game on. They are third and fourth overall. They are second and third in class. And up towards that long looping right of Le Beausset they go. That's where we lost the Brabham earlier on. David Brabham having taken over. That car's going to be worth watching as now Fjordbach, look, comes up to have a go. Bert Longchamp is going to have to make that Audi very, very wide indeed. Same type of car, two different teams. Bert Longchamp needs to stick out his elbows here because Fjordbach is lining up to make a move around Virage du Lac up towards the end of the lap of the race now. This being lap number 16 for the race leader, and Bert Longchamp stays ahead. Fjordbach just glances the curb wide into Virage du Pont, tight out, and he's up alongside Bert Longchamp, gets the drive off the corner and goes through. Bert Longchamp will have the inside line for turn one, but is he going to be able to stay level? He's not. He's going to be very, very brave, late braking if Longchamp can retaliate on the inside line, but I think Fjordbach's got the job done. Yes, he has. Round the outside into the corner, Fjordbach goes by. So Anders Fjordbach up into third place overall, up to second in class. And now Longchamp has got to finish and therefore score points in order to nudge it to the last race of the year. Anders Fjordbach, fastest lap of the race, no messing. Now he's 26.5 seconds away from Julien Piguet, 15 minutes to go. Can he do it? If the car were to win, 81 would need to be third. Well, that's where he is, so it looks like it will, as long as 81 finishes, go to the last race. But can Fjordbach take another win? It's 4 victories that they have had to the 3 from Longchamp and Gulings. And up towards the chicane Nord they come once again. Now, Piguet is being caught in the middle sector of this lap by Ulrich, and Fjordbach is lapping quicker than both. Admittedly, not by massive chunks of time, but by fractions of a second, but it all helps. He's only taken a 10th out in the middle sector, so Fjordbach's pace is certainly on a par with Piguet. And with 14 minutes to go, that's going to make it tough, I think, for the gap to come down markedly. Now there are the leaders, once more, making that run out of the Virage du Pont. Over the timing line they go. And down towards the approach now to turn 1. The gap between them, 0.8 of a second. Fair play to Christoph Ulrich, because he's not falling away here. He is staying with the race leader. He wants a class win. Yes, he's already won the championship in the AM class. Yes, however, an outright race win would be a fantastic achievement. Race leaders then currently start the 17th lap of the race. We've got 13.5 minutes, give or take, still to go. Anders Fjordbach's last lap is a 2 minutes 7.1. That's 9/10 better than Piquet. So he's brought the margin down, no question. And there is possibly more to come. Just look at the way that Fjordbach, having cleared Bert Longchamp, has pulled away. Hanstuk staying with Longchamp as there. Change for the lead. Ulrich through on the inside of Piquet, coming into the chicane, so he's got the lead back. Fantastic stuff. Christoph Ulrich becoming a real star here, the underdog, if you like, the AM ahead of the Pro. So the KTM goes through this KTM Crossbow GT2. The Expo comes up towards Senior as the new leading car once more. And this is how he did it. Coming up towards the chicane, Ulrich in the wheel tracks, didn't look like he was going to make the move, and then decided, blimey, he's braked early. And Ulrich, very bold on the brakes, charges up the inside line and secures the place. A job well done. Now, if those two start squabbling, would that bring Anders Fjordbach into the mix? And indeed, has Piquet got a problem? Is that why he suddenly dropped pace? Because not only has he lost the lead, you can see he's lost 3, 4, 5 lengths against the race-leading car, but Christoph Ulrich at the end of this lap, the end of lap number 17, is going to be back up front. Comes over the line now. 12 more minutes are on the clock. It's going to be 6 laps at most. So through he goes. Through goes Christoph Ulrich. And for second place, Julien Piquet goes through. The margin already up to 0.9 of a second. Now that lap by Piquet was a 2 minutes 10. That is a slow lap. It just starts to make one wonder whether all is well in that Lamborghini, because Ulrich, as I say, is getting away. And when Anders Fjordbach comes over the line, then we will see that margin drop to 23.5 seconds. But the lap from Fjordbach was nearly a full 3 seconds quicker. So certainly something is happening in the Lamborghini, because Julien Piquet dropped a big chunk of time, and he's still dropping that chunk of time because he's lost another 9/10 within the first sector of the lap. So now Fjordbach for second overall is a possibility. He's in the background, coming now onto the Mistral straight, and that second overall is really the class lead. Christoph Ulrich kind of tricking us all here, because yes, he's the outright race leader, but he's in a different category from Piquet, Fjordbach and Longchamp. Fjordbach has just done an absolute best in the first sector, which is a massive 1 second plus quicker than Piquet. So there's no question that Piquet is dropping time around the racetrack. Han Hoylin ahead of Cyril Lima further back. Sedi Sarmini still in 8th place. Luca Piri 9th, Michael Vogels 10th. Leonardo Carini has dropped a long way back into 11th after the stops. So it is Ulrich, Piquet, Fjordbach 1st, 2nd and 3rd. 4th going through Longchamp, 5th behind him is Stutt. Then it's Hoylin from Lima. There's Sedi Sarmini keeping Luca Piri at bay. That's the 8th and 9th places. The margin between them is not exactly a big one. Sedi Sarmini, just to make the point, going solo, although Stefan Larson appeared on the entry list and is the regular partner. It has been a solo effort this weekend from Sedi Sarmini, and right now he hangs on to 4th in class, winner outright with Rossina's help at Spa. Into the last 10 minutes of the race, and as the cars work towards Virage Dupont, Fjordbach took another second out of Piquet in the middle sector and over a second again in the 3rd. So he's now 20 seconds away for 2nd place. Luca Piri lines up to have a go here. Look, coming down towards Virage Dupont, but is the move on? Sarmini tries to cover it off, but Luca Piri takes a slightly wider approach, gets a very good run through the corner there, tries to get out alongside as they head over the timing line now. nose to tail. The Audi with all of that grunt tries to line up for the inside line, but to no avail. Through they go, down towards turn 1. Sarmini is quick, no question, and Michael Vergas behind them is lapping fractionally faster as well. So the Porsche could be in the mix by the very end of this lap. Battle on the road then for 8th place, but it's for 4th within the Pro-Am class. There is only Pro-Am and Am. There's no outright Pro in all of this because, of course, the concept of the championship is aimed at the gentleman racer, the less experienced racer, dare one say the older driver, and it has proved to be a very successful concept this year. Fastest lap goes the way of Anders Fjordbach, very much one of the pros, and Fjordbach is 22 seconds off the race lead. I think he's going to run out of time to do that, 8 minutes to go, but Fjordbach for 2nd place against Piquet. Again, over a second in Sector 1 pullback, 9/10 in Sector 2 pullback. He's absolutely relentless in his charge. Sarmini there, ahead of Piri. They turn way up through the chicane and then accelerate up towards Signy once again. Michael Vergas in the background, quicker than both in the first sector, so still hustling along, trying to play catch-up. And Piquet hanging on to the lead of the Pro-Am category, albeit might be on borrowed time here. It's a long lap, of course, at Paul Ricard, nearly 6 kilometres in length, and so with 7.5 minutes on the clock, not too many laps remain. Right now, Luca Piri crawling all over the back, as you can see, of Sedi Sarmini. This is for 8th overall. Piri shown the outside line. That becomes the inside if he can stand his ground towards Virage Dupont, but can't do it. Has to slot back in behind. Now, this is what he did a lap ago. A really good exit from this last corner, very nearly put him level. Fjordbach, incidentally, has gone quicker again, 2 minutes 5.739. He is 16 seconds off the 2nd place car, and Luca Piri up alongside Sedi Sarmini nearly as they cross the line there. The dark horse out of all of this is Vergas in the background, look, because the Flying Dutchman, Formula Ford star of the late 80s, early 90s, runner-up in the festival, he's getting closer and closer all the time. So Verge now very nearly on the back of Piri. The margin between those two was 2.6 seconds last time, and if you look at Piri, is a bit stuck, as he seems to be behind there, Sedi Sarmini. That's going to help Vergas get even closer. 6 minutes and change on the clock now. 6 minutes and 16 seconds for Fjordbach to make up against Piquet. Tough ask. What about Piri onto the straight now? Goes left, foot to the floor, makes the run up against the KTM. He's been getting closer and closer and closer, and he's almost there now, ready to strike. Replay here of David Brabham on the prowl, getting himself up on the inside of Mauro Casadei, and that gives David Brabham now 12th place overall. Pro-Am goes ahead of Am. Fjordbach being warned about track limits, and Luca Piri gets right onto the back of the KTM. They're coming out of the chicane. Still can't quite make a move, can't quite get up alongside, but not for the want of trying. Through Le Beausset they go, and in the meantime, the Lamborghini battle here, Han Hoylin versus Cyril Leimer for 6th and 7th places are just up the road. The other Lamborghini going nicely, of course, was that of Piquet, but is that Piquet with a problem? I think it is. So Julien Piquet's car, which was getting slower and slower, stops coming over the timing line. So Fjordbach goes 2nd, and that is going to give him a class win if he stays there, but that does look, as the door opens, as though that is the Julien Piquet Lamborghini that has ground to a halt. Interesting that it's done that rather than him come into the pit lane. Luca Piri tries to make a move, but there's going to be a yellow flag there just to warn of a stationary car. It is indeed Piquet out of it. So Julien gets out, trudges away. Big, big disappointment after what had been a race-leading stint. So Christoph Ulrich could be making history by being an Am to win outright, as there Luca Piri has finally got past Sedi Sarmini, so he's just gained 2 places, one on the road and one by retirement of another car, with 4 minutes and change on the clock. Right, Fjordbach doesn't have to try so hard, of course. He's just been gifted the class lead. Bert Langin then needs to make sure that he stays as close as he can in order to keep this championship fight alive going into the 2nd race. So 33 is going to win as you watch Piri and Sarmini attack again, and Sarmini on the inside line, and so also Vergas. Vergas tries to clear both of them. He's got past Piri, has he? No, not quite. That all got a bit crowded coming out of Saint-Beau, but now the Porsche, with all of that real estate ahead of it to stretch its legs, comes up alongside and goes ahead of the Audi. So rather than going one up, it's one back for Luca Piri. I thought he'd done it. I thought he'd cleared Sarmini's KTM, but Michael Vergas goes ahead of Luca and then also comes up to challenge Teddy Sarmini into the chicane. Right, back to my Fjordback point. He's going to win the Pro-Am class. That means 81 needs to be third or better to keep the championship alive. He will be, because Betlangin is second at the moment, so that's all good. This might yet all get a bit fractious, mightn't it? Teddy Sarmini just ahead of Michael Vergas, just ahead of Luca Piri. In the background is a rather delayed Leonardo Gorini, so clearly something has gone awry for him. And there, the Porsche, Michael Vergas at the wheel of it, hustles on, and the yellow flag confirms not only the retirement of Julien Piguet, but this car now into the lead of Pro-Am. So Fjordback it is, up front in the class, and 18.4 seconds off Christoph Ulrich. The message, if the team is savvy, will have been, you've got the class lead, back off, you don't need to be pushing, because actually Fjordback's had a warning about track limits anyway, so the more restrained he is, the less likely he is to get another warning about those. So Fjordback comes through. Now there, Piri has finally cleared Sarmini and makes a move against Vergas then. Three of them as one, diving down towards the first corner. This is 7th, 8th and 9th. And a punctured tyre, a broken suspension indeed for Vergas. He goes straight on, way up the escape road and into the barrier. I'm afraid the car just would not turn. So Michael Vergas has a failure at the end of the high-speed pit straight. That's a big impact into the tyres. Let's have another look at it. Now, what did he do? Did he clip the curb coming off the last corner? No, he clips the KTM. Doesn't realise, because in a straight line, the car is good, and the race is being stopped. Red flag. So there, look, the suspension gives, well, it's already broken, but this is the first time Michael hits the brakes and needs to turn in, and there's just no chance. The only way the car is moving at all in an angle is because he's hitting the curb, and then eventually at high speed into the barrier, and that's quite a sudden stop. Michael's okay and out of the car, but 2 minutes to go, red flag, race stop. There wouldn't have been any real use for putting out a safety car because we wouldn't have got the race restarted within the time. So the red flag is shown and the race is stopped. And the result of that will be confirmed in due course, but let us hope that the damage to the Porsche is not too great and can be made good for race 2 later on in the day. So Michael Vergas is okay, which is good to see. You've got to feel, he's hurt his hand a bit, no doubt, in the steering wheel whipping round. You've got to feel for Aurelius Rustica. That car caught fire at Spa, and for the second time in a row, actually, second meeting in a row, that Porsche brings out a red flag. Now, if you are the cause of the red flag, the officials can remove you or penalise you, and it would be a real shame yet again if the car were excluded for causing a red flag. That is the biggest penalty, but it doesn't have to be the penalty. It could be a place drop, but the officials within the regulations have the provision of a penalty up to and including exclusion, which always feels a bit draconian in that context. Anyway, we will see what comes of it, but Aurelius Rustica has got bigger problems than a potential penalty. He's got a damaged car and another race to do, and you can see the damage down to the front of it. It's gone into the barriers, the Ratel barriers. So Michael will have a trip to the medical centre. The race will not be resumed, confirmation of that. So it all started here with Vergas being quick and just glancing off the back of the KTM. Contact made, you could see there the suspension breakage, but Michael wouldn't know about it until about here. So he hits the brakes, and that's when the car suddenly becomes really, really leery. No way is that going to turn. And bounces over the curb. It's only those bounces over the curbs that really changed the angle of the car much. He's fighting the wheel to try and get it to move away from a barrier, scrub off speed, but the Porsche into the barriers, and the race then is not going to be resumed. The result will be confirmed, but for the moment the timing screen's order needs clarification because Teddy Sarmini is on the live timing as a winner. And now we are getting, well, Julien Piguet is now being shown as in second place, but he wasn't running at the time of the stoppage. So is he going to be given his place back? That's an interesting one. The cause of a red flag is another of those, under these regulations, slight imponderables as to whether, if you're the cause of it, you are given a penalty or not. But Julien Piguet was not the cause of any stoppage. He'd retired, but ironically could be put back into the results. I know in the UK, if you are the cause of a red flag, or not running at the time of the stoppage, as it's called, then you are not taken in the result. But this isn't a motorsport UK regulation. The RAC of Belgium is the sanctioning body for this. So Julien Piguet might actually have got himself back into the results, courtesy of Michael Verger's accident. So Christoph Ullrich has won outright. That's the easy bit. Julien Piguet and Cedric Lima being shown as the Pro-Am winners from Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson, and then Bert Langin and Peter Gulinks. Second of the AMs, Chris Rosenberger and Hans Stuck, and the third of the AMs, Han Hoi Lin and Jaromir Jerick. So that is subject to confirmation, as all of these things are. But as I say, Julien Piguet on the count back looks like he's been put back into the results, even though he was not circulating. So the second race for the Fanatec GT2 European Series is at 8:10 tonight. So a night race, which will give another challenge to the drivers. Of course, night racing at Paul Ricard, nothing new. We have, as an example, the annual 6-hour GT World Challenge Europe race here. But of course, for the AMs, and they will do the second stint, it will be a real task because they are without the reference points that they know from the daylight. So it's going to be a very different situation all round when we get to that race later on in the day. So there, Christoph Ullrich is a happy man as a race winner. Anders Fjordbach and Mark Patterson trying to work out whether they won the class or not, but for the moment the results say that they have not. And there the barrier repair work goes on and the Porsche to be retrieved, but the suspension damage is one thing, the bodywork damage on that front right corner is another. And we saw Michael Verger get out of the car, but hopefully he's okay and has not suffered too much as a legacy of that big whack into the barriers. It was a pretty sudden stop, so big disappointment all round. So this is how the results are provisionally. Christoph Ullrich, the winner, the first AM to win outright, from Cedric Lima and Julien Piguet, put back into the results on the countback, the result declared at the end of lap 20. Mark Patterson, with Anders Fjordbach, third from the pit lane, ahead of Peter Gulinks and Bert Langin, with Chris Rosenberger and Hans Stuck fifth, and Jaromir Jerick and Hoi-Lin Han taking sixth. Cyril Lima seventh, and Stefan Ratel and Luca Piri finishing in 8th place. 9th for Sedi Sarmini, ahead of then Aurelius, Rustica and Michael Vergers. That car may be taken out of the results for causing the red. Leonardo Guarini next, ahead of Dennis Anderson and David Brabham. Stephan Larson and Mauro Casadei 13th, and 2 laps down, J.M. Lippmann and Luca De Marchi in the Ferrari. Let's have a look then at the highlights of the first Fanatec GT2 European Series race of the weekend, with Christoph Ullrich starting on pole position and blasting away, missing from the grid, starting from the pit road. Mark Patterson, whose car was released as the field went by. Good start by Chris Rosenberger, diving through the traffic to try and bag second place, and it was the car of Cedric Lima third as they wriggled their way up around the first few corners on the opening lap of the race. Ullrich built the lead, and Sedi Sarmini soon started to drop away from the leaders as J.M. Lippmann made an early pit stop, and Dennis Anderson had an early spin looking to get past Jaromir Jerick and just glancing off the back of Cyril Lima's car as it went by. Chris Rosenberger under attack as well, tried to cover off a move by Lima, but in the end ran out wide and scrabbled his way on the escape road back onto the circuit. Cedric Lima going through, as then Peter Gulinks late in the opening stint made a move against Sedi Sarmini and took the place away. That moved Gulinks up in terms of points within the class in the classification, and he continued then to build that advantage over the opposition as the pit window opened. And not only did Peter Gulinks come in, but so also did Mark Patterson and Stefan Ratel to give way there to Luca Piri. Cars blasted their way back onto the circuit, ready for the second stint of the race, with a good effort being put in by Julien Piguet to lead. But then the car started to lose time, started to lose pace, and the net result of that was that the gap came down to that man Ulrich once more. Christoph Ulrich getting closer and closer, as also Bert Longchamp was able to move ahead of Hans Stuck and take position away from him. Anders Fjordbach then made his move up against Bert Longchamp, and that was for second in class. The only target next was Julien Piguet in the starting to wilt Lamborghini. It was brave stuff between the two Audi drivers. Longchamp trying to brave it out on the inside line, but ultimately round the outside would go Fjordbach, as then for the race lead, Christoph Ulrich made his dive through on the inside. He got ahead of Piguet, and the lap times from the Lamborghini were certainly starting to go up. That car in trouble as the race wore on, and eventually Piguet would park it with 5 minutes to go, but perversely back into the result on the countback as he trudged away from the car. And then the main drama that caused the red flag, this moment as Michael Vergers came out of the last corner, hit a slow, steady Sarmini. That broke the suspension, but he didn't know that until he got down to the first corner. Luca Piri cleared both of them, and then Vergers straight on as the front left wheel waved goodbye to the world, and into the barrier with a hard hit went the Porsche. So that brought out the red flag and confirmed a race win for this man, for Christoph Ulrich. So the AM champion Christoph Ulrich victorious in race 1 here at Paul Ricard after a very impressive drive indeed. So the drivers now hopefully being rounded up ready for the podium, and part of a busy weekend of racing here at the Paul Ricard circuit, with the French GT Championship due to hit the circuit next. But of course there is some barrier repair work to do before all of that. So the race officials doing what's necessary to make the circuit safe and clear, ready for the next activity, as the fans look on from the balcony as part of this SRO Racing Festival, with yesterday being given over to practice and qualifying, today the odd qualifying session, but largely racing, and with some categories getting 4 races. It's a really full day indeed, and that means that many will get a night race tomorrow's slightly condensed timetable, finishing mid-afternoon, to give the teams a chance then to travel home from the south of France. But the option to have a night race, something that the amateur racers in whatever category are really looking forward to. Renault Clios, for example, in the dark tonight, that's going to be something. Good luck policing track limits with that, you think. So as the barrier repair work goes on, the GT2 drivers set to make their way up to the podium. The barrier, I think, is just about good. The bits of debris picked up, swept away, and the Paul Ricard Track Services team have done a good job very quickly there of getting things sorted out, ready for the resumption of track activity with qualifying for the French GT Championship coming up next. There is a car heading towards the championship, it seems. The Mark Patterson, Anders Fjordbach Audi. But for the moment, drivers being, what hopes, taken up to the podium. Great job done by Christoph Ulrich to come out on top as the winner. First time an AM has been victorious outright. So a good season. Has already had, of course, the AM title go his way. Now crowned really by an overall win. Now the podium is being dressed, but as yet no drivers, I don't think, are there. I think they're being rounded up at the foot of the podium, yes. So bit by bit by bit, we have the requisite drivers being attracted. And a class win, even though they weren't running at the time, seemingly, for Julien Piguet and Cedric Lima. It's one of the quirks of the countback on a red flag, and it's something that the British governing body changed many years ago with the regulation that if you are not running at the time of a red flag, then you don't stay in the result, because the chances are you'll be the cause of it, or involved in the race-stopping incident. whereas that doesn't apply as a regulation elsewhere. Remember, Laurens Vanthoor winning at Macau, for example, in the GT World Cup, being upside down, but still won on the countback. So Valérie Guillon, who's the championship manager, is on the phone, making sure that the right drivers are being brought forward. Possibly the question mark is over that Pro-Am class win, but I'm entirely sure the Lamborghini is there either, or Piguet and Lima still being retrieved. So where the drivers are, it could be Julien Piguet is still stuck on the other side of the circuit. So race 2, as I was saying earlier on, comes out as a night race, and the drivers that have just done that second stint are going to be the start drivers for the second race, so it'll be a different feel, certainly for the start. A different grid as well, based on the standalone qualifying session that we had last night. And the final race of the Fanatec GT2 European Series will confirm the champion a little bit later on. So the podium being prepared, and drivers sort of ready, so might be the AMs that we get through first. But as ever, the Fanatec GT2 European Series giving plenty of drama, plenty of excitement, plenty of good racing as well, which is always good to see. SRO's Marion Kashka there with the winning drivers. Hans Stuck in the background just putting on his Pirelli winner's cap. Stucky, one of the small number of overseas honorary members of the British Racing Drivers Club, the very popular double Le Mans winning Austrian driver. These days, because of his age, graded bronze, but you think after all that he's done, that's perhaps a little bit quirky, but it's an age thing, you know. Right, we have got the Pro-Ams being called forward. There for third place is Bert Langin, along with Peter Gulinks, who will make his way forward and keeping their championship hopes alive going into the final race. For second place, Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach step forward in the high-class racing Audi. And then the quirk of the day, even though they had retired, we thought they're going to win their class, because up for the top step for the class should come Cedric Lima and Julien Piguet. Right, the confusion reigns. So up come Mark Patterson and Anders Fjordbach. Now, are we going to have this as the Pro-Am podium or an outright podium? There's your answer. It's the Pro-Am podium, which confirms that Cedric Lima and Julien Piguet are indeed class winners. So whatever the problem is that stopped the Lamborghini, they've at least got a class win to celebrate in the meantime. So the Pro-Am victors, by default, it's got to be said, but they were leading when the car stopped in the hands of Julien Piguet. Julien Piguet and Cedric Lima come out on top in Pro-Am for the Auto Vitesse team. So congratulations then to Julien Piguet and to Cedric Lima, and hopefully that car is going to be good to go, ready for the second race later on in the day, because it was showing good pace and had got the race lead after the pit stops. So now the trophies are there, and everybody smiles at the cameras. Happy drivers all round. Relieved drivers, I suspect, namely Julien Piguet and Cedric Lima. And the Pro-Am drivers then set to jump down from the podium, and the Am drivers will be next, where for third place it's going to be Jaromir Jerick and Han Hoi-Lin. For second place it is going to be Chris Rosenberger and Hans Stuck, and the class winners will be, of course, Christoph Ulrich as the outright winner. So the trophies being prepared, and in a moment, once Marion has put out the winners' trophies there, in fact there are two, but there's only one driver for them, which is Christoph Ulrich. Thumbs up, And therefore, for third place, the target racing squad of Jaromír Jerick and Han Hoi Lin, the Chinese-Czech combination with the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo GT2. Han Hoi Lin was a class winner in Super Trofeo at Spa a few weeks, sorry, the Nürburgring, I should say, a few weeks ago, and now coming into another series and taking a category win, category podium here for third place. Christoph Ulrich, though, very much an A+ in his efforts. So there, Jaromír Jerick and Han Hoi Lin step forward for third place. Han Hoi Lin, experienced driver from Lamborghini Super Trofeo in Asia, in Europe and in the Middle East there with his BRDC badge on his overalls. Is Hans Stuck, who steps forward with Chris Rosenberger. And ever the gentleman, Stuckey looks after his AM and takes second place. And then Christoph Ulrich, the AM champ, the AM winner, the outright race winner, steps forward at the end of a fantastic performance then to take outright honours in this first Fanatec GT2 European Series race of the weekend. And Christoph Ulrich stands on the top step of the podium as a very happy man indeed for the Sportec Motorsport squad. Congratulations to Christoph Ulrich, who wins the first race of the weekend in the Fanatec GT2 European Series. We'll see you at 8:10 for race 2. For now, from David Addison. Goodbye.